Good evening. Welcome to tonight's very hot button debate. Does God exist? My name is Courtney Thompson, and on behalf of Does God Exist Debate Facebook page and biblicallyapologetic.wordpress.com, I will be serving as moderator for the debate this evening. Tonight, you will be hearing presentations from two very passionate speakers on tonight's subject. But before we get started with the debate, I want to take a few minutes out of our time to introduce both the speakers and give some rules and guidelines for tonight's debate. Taking the affirmative in tonight's debate will be Mr. Thomas Cruz. Mr. Cruz is a former student of West Georgia Tech. Currently, he works as vice president of a green energy company. He also is a contributor to biblicallyapologetic.wordpress.com and founder of Does God Exist, the debate Facebook page. He is also a proud father and husband. Taking the negative in tonight's debate will be Brett Strong. Mr. Strong is the host of a YouTube page, username Mr. Brett Strong, all one word. Or if you want to visit his YouTube page, please visit youtube.com/user/Mr. Brett, BRETT, Strong, STRONG, and again, all one word. He is also the author of an ebook by the name of 12 Facts That Prove the New Testament Jesus is a fictional character from ancient times. Brett has also debated on some very well-known Christian apologetic radio shows, like the premiere Radio Unbelievable with Justin Brierly, Greg Cockles, and Jay Warner Wallace of Stand to Reason, Frank Turek, the Apologetics.com team, Matt Slick, and a biochemist by the name of Dr. Franz Rana. Some outlines for tonight's rules will be as follows. Each speaker will be given 15 minutes each for their opening statements. Opening statements will be their attempt to lay out their argument in a coherent manner. Second portion of tonight's debate will be the first portion of the cross-examination period. In this first portion of the cross-examination period, the debaters will each have 10 minutes to ask questions and give answers. Now, please remember, the questioner may only ask questions and the responder may only answer from the statements, in the form of statements. Any comparisons to past debates, statements, or opinions will not be allowed unless they have already been addressed by the individual's opening statements. Each speaker will then give a 10-minute rebuttal to the opponent's opening statements and or the cross-examination period. The third section of tonight's debate will be another 10-minute cross-examination period by each opponent, in which they will be again given 10 minutes to ask questions and respond back in the form of statements. The next portion of the debate will be a 10-minute closing statement, in which we will essentially be closing up tonight's debate. The order of the debate will be as follows. Cruz will be speaking first, and then we will essentially be flip-flopping until the end of the debate. First and foremost, before we continue on and go ahead with tonight's debate, I would like to ask if both of the debaters agree with the rules and guidelines in which have been stated, and also if they both agree that they don't mind having this debate recorded.
I agree.
All right, and without any further ado, Mr. Cruz, opening statements. You have 15 minutes, and it begins when you begin. The clock begins when you begin to speak.
Okay. I would first like to thank Brett Strong for participating in the debate on the existence of God. I would like to thank Courtney Thompson for moderating. My goal in this debate is to show how the logical necessity and preconditions for intelligibility lie in transcendental truths. I would like to define some terms before I begin my opening statement. I will be defending theism, more specifically Christian theism. When I use the term God, it is specifically referring to the Christian God. If my opponent would like to bring other religions into the debate, I will join him in refuting them. The Christian worldview is the only one that I find logically coherent, intellectually tenable, and viable as a philosophical system. Also, having been saved and regenerated by the Christian God, I will not be able to defend any other religious systems. That being said, I would like to contend that atheism ultimately leads to contradiction, absurdity, and ultimately a denial of any and all knowledge. I believe the atheist does, in fact, have knowledge contrary to what they claim because they are made in the image of God and think God's thoughts after him. This is not to say that atheists or Christians are omniscient. This statement simply makes the claim that transcendental truths speak to one mind that governs the way in which we think. This is a communicable attribute given to humans by God. Proverbs 1:7 states, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge," and I hold to that. Atheists claim to know that there is no God. Mr. Strong refers to himself as an agnostic atheist. The way he defines this is as follows. Mr. Strong affirms that design is evidence of a creator, yet Mr. Strong says that he is not an atheist, that he is an atheist when it comes to all of the religions of the world. He claims to know without a shadow of a doubt these religions are false, stating it as fact, but says he cannot make a knowledge claim pertaining to a God that is outside of the sufficient revelation given by the Christian God in Scripture. Mr. Strong can, if he chooses, use logic and morality to disprove Christianity. The problem with this assertion is that Mr. Strong is borrowing from the very worldview he's trying to refute. This would be like me trying to use math to disprove numbers. Since math presupposes numbers, I would first have to find another system to prove that numbers do not exist. I would be more than happy to learn how Mr. Strong can use these terms, such as logic and morality, in a way that has any truth value in a naturalistic worldview. My opponent says that all ancient history is hypothesis and is not empirically verifiable, yet he claims that God did not exist because there is no evidence. In Mr. Strong's rationale, he cannot affirm any ancient history to be objectively true, and if presented with evidence for the existence of God, would have to dismiss it as mere hypothesis. I don't feel I need to discuss this any further because this statement is self-refuting. It also shows Mr. Strong's presuppositions about God and the supernatural. In this debate, my opponent and I could both speak of travesties committed by Christians and atheists. This debate is not the behavior of those who hold to these diametrically opposed philosophical systems, but if the systems are true. I have heard atheists claim that the rejection of the Christian God leads to greater freedom and quality of life. I would like to make the same claim about Christian theism in my own personal life. This is a subjective claim based in emotion and has no foundation as a factual statement that is objectively true. No, we are here to argue about the existence of God. My argument is a simple one. I find it impossible to make sense of the world or to have any absolute truth or knowledge claim without the existence of God. We have an antonymic pair, God or no God. If one of these options is shown to be logically impossible, the other option is validated automatically, unless a third option is shown to be possible. Science, by definition, is the knowledge about or study of the natural world based on facts learned through experiments and observation. This means that science cannot test anything that is immaterial or conceptual. God is an immaterial, eternal, transcendent being that exists outside the limitations of the natural world. Tonight, if my opponent appeals to science, he is making what is known in philosophy as a category mistake. A category mistake, but by definition, is the error of assigning something a quality or action that can properly be assigned to things only of another category. For example, treating abstract concepts as if they had a physical location. God is only one example. Justice is another. We come into tonight's debate with our presuppositions. I have a supernaturalistic worldview, and my opponent has a naturalistic one. My question to my opponent is a simple one. If God does not exist, how do you account for the transcendental truths such as the laws of logic and objective morality? Where do these laws come from if they are not governed by the natural world? I will give 3 examples. Example 1, logical absolutes exist. Logical absolutes are conceptual by nature, that they are not dependent on space, time, physical properties, or human nature. They are not the product of the physical universe, because if the physical universe were to disappear, logical absolutes would still be true. Logical absolutes are not the product of human minds, because human minds are different, not absolute. But since logical absolutes are always true, everywhere, all the time, they must have another source. The logical absolutes are the law of identity, which states something is what it is and is not what it is not. Something that exists has a specific nature. For example, a cloud is a cloud. It isn't a rock, a fish, or a car. The second logical absolute is the law of non-contradiction, which states something cannot be both true and false at the same time in the same sense. For example, to say that the cloud is not a cloud will be a contradiction since it would violate the first law. The cloud cannot be what it is and what it is not at the same time. The third law of logic is the law of excluded middle, which states if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. This law allows us to make logical statements without having all of the information. A good example is the statement, I am alive. This statement is always true because if it is found to be false, it is self-refuting. In other words, something that is not alive cannot make a statement. If we are to say that this statement is in fact false, we have to say it's a paradox. Paradoxes presuppose the laws of logic and can only exist within the realm of absolute truth or logic. There is no way the atheist can account for such truths. We are dealing with the impossibility of the contrary. The Christian worldview very easily accounts for logic. Maybe my opponent can help me understand how he does. Example 2 will be based on objective morality. This debate is not based specifically on morality, but objective moral truths are transcendent in nature and, like the laws of logic, cannot be made sense of in a naturalistic worldview. I believe objective morality does exist and there are absolute morals. I am not saying the atheist cannot be moral, and I'm not saying the atheist cannot defend their own personal morality. I am asserting that the atheist cannot explain how objective moral standards exist without a transcendent mind or author of such truths. I would like to start by outlining the 5 arguments I've heard from the agnostic atheist and refute each of them. Some of these arguments are new, based in science, and some of them are older, based in philosophy. Either way, I would like to show how these arguments fail to show a coherent explanation for morality in general. Argument 1, society and culture dictate morality. This is the most common justification for morality I hear from the agnostic atheist. This view states that morality is ultimately dictated by our society and the ebb and flow of culture over time. This view is common in America because of our ability to legislate morality through our democratic process. This view, however, is fundamentally flawed. I will demonstrate how throughout our own history and by using logic, this view, while being held by many, is lived out and practiced by none. In the 1940s, America went to war with Nazi Germany. The Nazi culture and society agreed that a systematic eradication of the Jewish population was morally right and acceptable. This is widely referred to as the Holocaust. America, knowing the Holocaust was objectively wrong, made effort to stop the Holocaust and remove the Nazi power from party. I do realize the war was fought for other reasons as well, but for sake of argument and time, we will stick to this one moral reason. We are left with a problem according to a worldview in which morality is dictated by society and culture. If German society said that killing Jews was morally good, why did America step in to stop them? Was it because we had a better morality? To say that we had a better morality would imply that there is an objective moral standard to appeal to that one can draw such conclusions from. Argument 2, evolutionary morality. This is an argument which is based in neo-Darwinism. This view attempts to make the case that through the process of Darwinian evolution, we have morality encoded into our very DNA. The purpose of this form of morality is ultimately the survival and advancement of the human race. If in fact evolutionary morality is true, why is it that we have societies and people that hold to different moral principles? And who are we to say that a particular people group did not evolve in such a way? I would like to propose a hypothetical. If a governing body of a sovereign nation looked at its food supply and realized the country's food supply was dwindling faster than it was able to be replenished due to overpopulation, would the governing body be justified in killing whomever they wish to ensure the society can proceed forward in a manner consistent with survivability? The flip side of this argument is a question posed to the atheist. If morality is based on survival and the betterment of society as a whole, why then do we as a society have social programs, soup kitchens, and homeless shelters. These actions of taking care of the less fortunate are acts of compassion and grounded in transcendent moral values, not morals that are focused on survival of the fittest. Argument 3, changing morality. Really, this argument falls under the umbrella of societal morality, but I wanted to address the idea of a morality that changes over time specifically. This argument states that morals have no transcendent truth, and they can and will change as the human race evolves culturally. The question is, by what basis do we determine if anything is ever right or wrong in this view? Without moral absolutes, the word right and wrong must be taken out of the English language. They don't mean anything. They are merely suggestions that apply to actions that have no moral value over time. To adopt a changing morality view, one must be consistent in the logical ramifications. The person who affirms changing morality must say, I think it is incorrect to torture babies for personal enjoyment, but that is just my opinion. And maybe in a few years, we will realize as a society that it is okay to torture babies for personal enjoyment. Therefore, if you would like to torture babies now, I won't support you, but I might in the future. This is an utter breakdown of any moral conviction or grounding in anything resembling what we refer to as morality. Argument 4, the causing harm argument. This argument states that anything is permissible as long as no harm is caused to an unwilling party. I would like to ask the agnostic atheist one question. If causing harm is always wrong, regardless of cultural changes, would that make it an objective moral standard? If so, how do you account for the act of harm being wrong everywhere all the time if morality is in fact subjective? Argument 5, the personal morality argument. The personal morality argument states that each individual has their own personal morality that, by definition, is a correct moral standard. This is simple to refute. Why would my opponent want to debate a person on something that is merely an opinion? This would be like having a debate on our favorite colors. Personal morality states that everyone has their own personal morality, which is correct. We must say that any incorrect morality only exists within the mind of the moral opinion holder and is irrelevant to discussion. We as people continuously appeal to transcendent moral truths, such as, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Example 3 will be science itself. Science must presuppose something it cannot prove to validate itself. The scientific method hinges on logical absolutes to make sense of the data it collects from the natural world. If the laws of logic are not transcendent in nature and our thought processes that exist within the mind of an individual, I would like to assert that scientific reasoning is viciously circular and must depend on human subjective thinking to validate anything it claims. If the laws of logic are transcendent and objectively true, the atheist must borrow a theistic worldview by presupposing something transcendent, immaterial, and true to validate science, or in layman's terms, God. In tonight's debate, be on the lookout for appeals to logic, morality, and science by my opponent. If he cannot ground these truths or methods in light of his worldview, he's borrowing from mine. This is a non sequitur. In other words, it doesn't work. I would like to reiterate that if a man goes on a rant to try to disprove the existence of words, he is in great error and can be compared to the atheist that uses transcendental laws and truths to disprove God. Atheism is not intellectually tenable, and within the antonymic pair of God or no God, the existence of God is proven by negation or impossibility of the contrary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz, for your opening statements. All right, Mr. Strong, your 15 minutes begins when you're ready.
Okay, my name is Brett Strong. Once again, my YouTube channel is Brett Strong. If I say 1,000 things wrong today, if I just stick to this one point, I've won the debate. And this one point is this: he cannot prove God exists, the Christian God. He can't do it. So I don't even know why we're having this debate tonight. I don't even know why he showed up. Because any scientist, Einstein, Stephen Hawking, the greatest scientists in the world would tell you, you cannot prove the Christian God exists. That is a fact. Any mathematician would tell you, you cannot prove the Christian God exists. You can't do it. It cannot be done. Any historian would tell you, you cannot prove the Christian God exists. Any medical doctor or philosopher, they all would tell you You cannot prove the Christian God exists, period. Everyone is on my side, the atheist side, Brett Strong's side. We say, hey, you cannot demonstrate empirically, mathematically, or experimentally that the Christian God exists. All scientists in the world, speaking as a scientist, back to atheists. All mathematicians speaking in the profession, back to atheists. All historians, back to atheists. All medical doctors, back to atheists. All philosophers, back to atheists. And when I say back to atheists, I'm saying all Christian and atheist scholars back atheist points of view, that you cannot prove the Christian God exists. It cannot be done. So for my opponent to even raise a question on the affirmative that, the Christian God exists, that's a fallacious statement. And all the scientists in the world and all the professors in the world speaking in their profession, they were all back the atheists. They were all back Brett Strong. And they would say to my opponent, you're wrong. You cannot prove the Christian God exists. It cannot be done. Ultimately, the Christian God must be taken on faith. Just like the monkey god, Zeus, Baal, Thor, Hercules, all gods must be taken on faith. That's a fact. This is not an assertion. This is a fact. The Christian God cannot be demonstrated, once again, cannot be demonstrated mathematically, experimentally, or empirically. Now, let me move on. He talks about the immaterial God. Scientists will tell you that there is no such thing as an immaterial world outside of the mind, the outer world. Scientists dedicate their entire lives to this, studying the cosmos, the outer world, down to the subatomic level. Einstein, Stephen Hawking, all would tell you there is no God. You can imagine, you can draw up a concept in your mind that there is a God, but scientists who spend their entire lives will tell you, all of them, you cannot prove the Christian God exists. It does not exist because all of the outer world is material. When my opponent says the immaterial, he's speaking fantasy land as far as immaterial in the outer world. If he wants to say immaterial, a concept, an ideal, fine. For this debate, I will accept it. But neuroscientists are saying that soon we will be able to dissect the thoughts to the point that they will be able to say there's a thought, we can weigh it, it is physical. They're sure about this, but for this debate, I won't even go there. I will accept for this debate that concepts, ideals are immaterial, but those are in the mind, the imagination. But the outer world, any scientist would tell you, it's all material. Whether it's energy, force, string theory, dark matter, it's all material. Scientists will say, hey, to my opponent, when you speak of the immaterial, whether it's immaterial itself or immaterial God, it's all fantasy. That's fantasy what you're speaking. It's not reality because you cannot demonstrate immaterial. It's never been done, so my opponent is speaking fantasy. I don't know why he's even showed up or taken it. Has my opponent taken the time to study science? I don't think so, because any scientist would say, dude, you're wrong. You're speaking fantasy. You cannot just demonstrate a God, so get out of here. Now, let me move on. Logic and morals. I'm not here to discuss philosophy. If you want to have a philosophical debate, then we can have a philosophical debate on morals or logic. But any philosopher, any professional philosopher like William Lane Craig, he's one of the top Christian philosophers in the world, he would tell you, philosophy does not prove God exists. What is philosophy, folks? Philosophy is thinking. Thinking about morals, thinking about logic does not prove that Christian God exists. So my opponent fails again because logic and morals does not prove that Christian God exists. He cannot jump from logic, morals, and make the wild leap to the Christian God exists. Go to any secular university in the world. They discuss morals. They discuss logic. God is never even brought up. Why? Because God has nothing to do with morals and logic. And when he said the Christian God does have something to do with morals and logic, he's imagining this. Because he cannot demonstrate the Christian God even exists. Therefore, he's just imagining logic, morals, it must be my Christian God. This is totally fallacious. His argument is baseless, worthless, and useless. Let's move on. He talked about the Bible. Moses. The Bible to me is a comic book. It's a book of fairy tales that has some real background like Israel, Jerusalem, but the characters like God, Jesus, those are fictional characters. Moses may have lived as a man, but as far as him being some miracle worker, that's fiction. But for the sake of this argument, let's bring up Moses. Moses spoke to God. In a fairy tale book called the Bible, Moses spoke to God. And God said to Moses, hey, go and free my people. What did Moses say? They're not going to believe me. I can't sit here and say, my God, you exist? Said Moses, put your hand in your shirt, pull it out. It turned white leprosy, put it back, healed it. Moses, take a stick, lay it down. Serpent picked it back up, back to a treelet. Moses went to Pharaoh, came with all types of miracles, splitting seas, flies, blood, to prove the Christian God exists. Now that's a book, any book. Read Superman book, read Spider-Man book. You'll see all kinds of fantastic miracles. Throw the Bible in there, fantastic miracles. But in reality, that stuff does not exist. I'll ask my opponent, can he split the sea in half? Can he turn an entire river full of blood instantaneously? Can he put his hand in his bosom and turn the leprosy, put it back and it's healed? Can he take a tree limb and put it on the ground and turn it into a snake and then pick it back up a stick? Can he do any miracle to prove his God exists? No, he can't do anything. Zero. That is a fact, folks. I'm giving you facts here because my opponent is good at saying, well, you're just speaking assertions. So this is a fact. He cannot do these things. Let's move on. He talks about a disembodied mind, God being a disembodied mind. Well, people claim to have out-of-body experiences. And they think, well, I looked up, I floated from my body, and I looked down, I saw the earth, I saw people talking. Fine. But a disembodied mind is powerless. I mean, how can a disembodied mind do anything without the physical body, a living physical body? A man that is paralyzed totally is trapped in his mind. The mind itself is powerless to do anything in the physical realm. So if he wants to talk about the Christian God being a disembodied mind, then he's failed again because the disembodied mind is powerless. Just looks and hears if you want to take people out of body experiences. So therefore, his God cannot be God. Let's move on. Evil in the world. He says the Christian God exists, but yet Christians get slaughtered throughout the world. Tortured, maimed, defeated, wives raped, men stoned to death, hung. How can you say the Christian God exists when Christians on earth are getting slaughtered today in parts of the world? Pulled out in the middle of the night of their home, wives screaming, kids screaming, take the man out and just take his head off. He's going to say the Christian God exists, but he allows this to happen to his own kids? Come on. Christian God is fiction. Natural disasters every spring in America down south, tornadoes wipe out Christian homes that they spend a lifetime making. Wipe out churches, seconds. Natural disasters, just fires, just burning out homes and people without regard to Christian or whatever. But yet he says the Christian God exists. What kind of God is this that will allow his kids to be raped, murdered, slaughtered? Natural disasters to wipe them out. Lifetime work gone. Left there crying on the evening news. What kind of God is that? That's not a God. That's a fictional God found in the fictional Bible. Let's move on. We've got about 5 minutes left. Human attributes. Read the Bible. The Bible is full of human attributes. God has hands, feet, eyes. But he's going to say, well, those are just analogies of God. Those are just metaphors. Doesn't say it, though. The Bible doesn't say it, but let's add more. In the Bible, the Christian God, he can be loving, kind, and gentle. But at the same time, boy, he can get mad, angry, and jealous. Kill them all. When you read about the Israelites, when they started worshiping the calf, God's own people. But he said, kill them all. And then went through the people, and they stabbed to death their own fathers and their own brothers for worshiping a calf. The Christian God acts insane at times, telling people to kill their own fathers and mothers because a calf. The Christian God loves worship, loves praise, just like human beings love worship, love praise. The Christian God also is remorseful. He's sorry. His heart is full of pain. Folks, all these human attributes are human attributes because the Christian God is a human invention. Therefore, he has human attributes because he's made after man. Man wrote the Bible, and he wrote in this God that resembled him because the Christian God is fiction. So he just wrote in his own God, the Christian God, the God made by man, proven by having our hands, feet, eyes. He loves, he hates, he's full of remorse, he doesn't know things, then he knows things, and he wants worship and praise, he gets angry, he gets jealous, and he's loving and kind. These are all human emotions. Christian God is fiction. Let me move on. There's millions of gods. Why? There's Zeus. There's Baal, New Age gods. Hindu gods, Vishnu, Brahma, and 300 million gods. The Indian God, the Great Spirit, the Mayan God that desired blood sacrifices. There's a design God, higher power God. There's millions of gods. Make up a God right now. I can make up a God, the immature chocolate chip God. Those gods are equal to the Christian God. Why? Because you can't prove they exist. And since you can't prove they exist, then all people do, like, well, you can't prove my God exists, and you can't prove my God doesn't exist, and the other one goes, well, you can't prove my God doesn't exist, so everyone goes home with their own gods. Why? Because these gods are fiction. All gods are fiction. And when you're dealing with fiction, you can have a million gods. Let's move on. The hiddenness of God. Once again, go to any scientist in the world. They study the outer world. There's no God, dude. It's all physical. There's all matter. There's no God. God is hidden because he's fiction. Even Christians struggle all the time. Oh, man, I feel like God is not real. Right? Because he's not real. Hello. That's that common sense talking to the Christian individual. The Christian God is not real. Therefore, that's why you feel he's hidden. He is hidden. He's hidden from reality. Now, I have about a minute. My opponent wants to claim probably personal experience. Oh, I have a personal experience with God. Fine. If your God is a personal experience, he's your God. He's your personal God, but he's not God of the universes. Therefore, the Christian God is not real. Maybe real to my opponent in his heart. Maybe his God, but he's not the God of the universes and whatever. Just a personal God of my opponent. And that personal God exists in his imagination, which shows, once again, the Christian God is fiction. It's in his mind, my opponent's mind. He can't demonstrate the Christian God. He cannot demonstrate the Christian God empirically, mathematically, or experimentally. He can't. All scientists back me. All philosophers back me. All historians back me. All medical doctors back me. Atheists and Christians, all scholars back me 100%. The Christian God cannot be demonstrated to be true. Ultimately, he must be taken on faith. Why? Because the Christian God is a fictional character made by people in the Bronze Age that my opponent happens to believe to be real. No more than a kid believing in Santa Claus. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Strong, for your opening statements. The next portion of our debate will be beginning with Mr. Strong, and this portion of the debate will be the first cross-examination period. Mr. Strong, your 10 minutes will begin for questions when you begin speaking.
Okay. Do you believe the Bible to be true?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to ask you a couple of questions about the Bible. Do you believe a snake spoke perfect Hebrew and debated people?
Debated people. Can you define that, please?
Yeah, the snake, Adam and Eve. You know the story. The snake was talking to Adam and Eve and fooled them. Do you believe a snake spoke perfect Hebrew and was talking to human beings? A snake talking to human beings speaking perfect Hebrew.
I believe he spoke, yes.
Do you believe a donkey in the Bible spoke perfect Hebrew to its master? A donkey.
Yeah.
So you believe a snake spoke perfect Hebrew, right? And you believe a donkey spoke perfect Hebrew. Am I correct?
Yes, I've already answered that. Yes.
To me, that sounds a little ridiculous, but we'll move on. Do you believe that 3 men in the Old Testament went into a fire, a bonfire? They went into the fire, Meshach, Abednego, those guys, they went into a fire. Do you believe 3 men really walked into burning flames and stood there and hung out for a little while and then walked back out? Do you believe that? In light of science, in light of what we know about reality, do you believe 3 men actually walked into burning flames, hung out, and then walked out scotch-free?
Yes, and I would like to say that what you know about reality and what I know about reality are a little different, because in a super naturalistic worldview, which I have, if you do have a God that created the universe out of nothing and can do with his creation as he wants, the supernatural is not discounted by any measure. You, once again, are using science to disprove the supernatural when you state yourself that science cannot test the supernatural.
Did you know scientists will tell you, see, this is where you're wrong again. You did it against your last opponent. This is where you're wrong when you say this. Do you know that any scientist will tell you that you're not supposed to substantiate the concept, the ideal? What is supposed to be substantiated is the concept true in reality. See, the concept itself is not supposed to be substantiated scientifically. That doesn't matter. What's supposed to be substantiated is the object of the concept. To say, I can fly, okay, that's the concept.
Hold on.
Is this a question or is this a statement?
Yeah, that's a question. Do you realize that scientists would tell you that the concept is not supposed to be proven empirically? What the concept states is supposed to be proven empirically. Do you understand that you're mistaken in your last debate and you've done it in your opening statement? You realize you're mistaken.
Hold on.
No, I don't. I don't realize I'm mistaken because you've yet to prove it. What you're doing now is you're saying that scientists will tell me that's impossible, and in your next sentence, you're saying that science is not supposed to prove or disprove a concept or anything outside of science, which the supernatural is. It's a self-refuting statement. You're being
no, it's not. No, it's not. Scientists
is this a statement or a question? Is this a statement?
No, this is a question. Do you realize that you're wrong? That scientists would tell you, no, you don't.
I don't realize.
I'm asking you, do you realize that? Hang on a second. Let me ask you a question. Scientists would tell you the concept is not what's in dispute. Is the concept real? That's in dispute. Do you understand that?
Well, if you can show me that concept is not real, I would love to hear it. But right now, I'm going to answer your question, and I'm going to say, no, I don't know. I'm wrong.
Exactly, because you haven't studied scientists, therefore I can understand that. Let's move on. I want to get caught up because I don't want to lose my 10 minutes. Do you believe a man named Moses split a sea in half and allowed millions of people to walk through the dry land as the sea split? So the sea split in half, and all the ground under it turned hard, so they were able to walk across that. In light of modern science, and a lot of what we know about reality, do you believe that man actually split a sea in half?
Well, in light of modern science, I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking?
Do you believe it? Yes or no?
Yes, I believe it. Of course.
Okay. Do you believe in 2 Kings that a horse and a chariot, both on fire, came out of thin air, bloom, appeared before men, and then disappeared back in the thin air? Read 2 Kings. A horse and chariot on fire came out of thin air, appeared to 2 men, and then disappeared back in the thin air. Do you believe, in light of modernity, science, what we know about reality, do you believe that's true in the Bible?
Yes, of course.
Sounds a little ridiculous. It is, but let's move on. Do you believe that Moses hit a rock and it split open? Hit a rock and water poured from a rock enough to feed eons of people? Do you believe that Moses hit a rock and this boulder started spurting out water, and everyone was able to drink water. Do you believe that?
Yes, of course.
Let me move on. Do you believe that the Old Testament God flooded the entire earth and drowned to death babies, infants, newborns, pregnant women, elderly people, drowned to death? Do you believe that your Christian God, according to the Bible, actually flooded the earth and drowned infants, babies, fetuses, the elderly, disabled people? Do you believe that?
No, I don't, and I'll tell you why. If you'll listen, God did not drown anyone who is innocent. Ephesians 2 says that we are all born children of wrath and people who hate God by nature. Everyone is guilty. You and me, but before I was saved.
I didn't ask that question. No. Hang on. I got my 10 minutes. I did not ask you that question. I said specifically, do you believe that your God drowned to death infants, babies, pregnant women, elderly, people with autism, mentally sick, elderly, handicapped? Do you believe your God drowned those people in the Old Testament?
I'm telling you, you use the word innocent, and I'm telling you, no, I don't.
I didn't say innocent. I think you're confused. I did not say innocent in that entire thing. I did not say innocent. I said people. Do you believe your Christian? Let me ask you again. Do you believe your Christian God drowned pregnant women, babies, infants, the elderly, the sick, the mentally handicapped? Do you believe your Christian God drowned these people?
Yes.
That's a yes or no. Don't be afraid to answer.
Yes. I just said yes.
Okay. Yes. And do you worship this God as being God?
Oh, of course I do. Yes.
And do you say that this God is a God of love and compassion?
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask you, so you feel that your God is full of love and is worthy of praise and compassion, but yet you admit that same God drowned babies, infants, pregnant women, handicapped, elderly people. You believe that?
Yes.
Wow.
And once again, I'll state what you're doing is you are, once again, appealing to morality to explain God, something in which you said couldn't be done. Because as you know, morality is conceptual by nature. You are, again...
No, but that's not the... Hang on, I got only a minute left. No, I asked you a simple question. That's it.
And I said yes.
Okay, but you don't need to explain it because saying yes... Do you realize to me and my beliefs... I got another minute. Let me ask you another question. Okay, this is another question.
Or a statement. Okay.
No, this is a question.
Okay.
Do you realize to me saying a God that's full of love and should be worshipped and praised, but yet goes around and drowns babies and infants and newborns and elderly and mentally handicapped? Do you realize for me, in my ethics, my personal convictions, do you realize that sounds outrageous?
Well, Mr. Strong, once again, you're appealing to something conceptual to disprove God, which you said was not allowed.
No. I didn't say disprove God. No. See, you're twisting my words. You're good at that. Don't twist my words. I didn't say this. I didn't even bring up disproving God.
Statement. Is this a question or a statement?
That is a question. No, I said it was a question.
Okay. In this period, I would like to have a chance to answer. Now, you're saying that God is immoral. I've yet to hear you.
No, I'm not. A moderator.
Hold on, Mr. Strong. Can we please not yell? You still have 38 seconds to ask questions, and Mr. Thomas still has the rest of the time in light of your questions.
Okay, first of all, people listening to this, I'm on a phone.
Thank you very much.
No, hang on. I just want to finish my second. I'm on a phone talking. I cannot hear anything outside of the phone. I don't have speakers, and I don't have headphones, so I don't know how loud my volume is. Okay? But I will say once again, I got a couple seconds, that to me, what's that?
Yes, sir, that is time. Thank you very much, Mr. Strong, for your first cross-examination period. Mr. Thomas, your 10 minutes for asking questions, and Mr. Strong, your 10 minutes to conclude the first cross-examination period will begin as soon as Mr. Cruz begins asking questions. And time is ready, so whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Mr. Strong, you said that science says that nothing is immaterial. Is that true that you said that?
I did not say that.
Okay.
You're not listening to me.
Okay. Is logic contained within the human mind?
Absolutely.
Okay. So does logic vary from minds that are different?
Oh, that depends. As you know, as a married man, I'm a married man. How many times have we gotten arguments with our wives, and they said, you're being illogical, and we're like, no, you're being illogical. So what do you mean by that? You need to just make a more pointed statement.
Well, okay. In that statement, you're being illogical, or you're being illogical. Is there truth value in either of those statements? And what are you appealing to when you say someone is being illogical? Or are you appealing to conventions of thought or an absolute law?
Well, those logic, when we say you're being, just say husband and wife argue and have a disagreement, both will say each other, and you know that as a married man, I'm a married man too, that we said to ourselves, that's illogical, and our wives look back at us saying that's illogical. So those logic that we're presenting to our spouses, so those are subjective to the individual. Because if it was objective, then the spouse couldn't come back and say that's wrong. So no, logic in that area is subjective to the individual. That's why we argue about logic in that area. Makes perfect sense.
I'm not sure I understand that. Okay, but okay, you say that I claim that God's a God of love, but He does natural disasters and Christians die and stuff. Would you say that those are acts of evil?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is evil is it a material thing, or is it immaterial?
Evil? What you mean, the actions or the thought? The thought is immaterial for this debate, but the actions are material. The concept is immaterial. Anything in the mind is immaterial. Okay, I'm going to make it real easy for you.
Okay. Well, if you say that God is evil, would you say that there are objective moral standards?
No, there is no objective moral standards. If you listen to my open dialogue, I said specifically morals are people's personal convictions.
Okay.
I have my personal convictions, and you have yours. Sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. Okay. All morals are personal convictions.
Okay, so basically you're saying that it's just your opinion that you think God is evil, and I could be right, that He isn't evil, right?
No, it's my personal opinion,
right?
Deeper than that. Personal conviction. That's totally different. Me and you, we're willing to die for our personal convictions, but we're not willing to die for our opinions of who's the best basketball team, who's the best football team, or the best ice cream. So I take it a little bit deeper than opinion. It's a personal conviction.
Are all convictions factual in nature, or can there be opinion in them?
Say that again?
Are all convictions factual?
No, all personal convictions, as far as right or wrong. We're talking about right or wrong, am I correct? Not personal convictions that I'm alive and I'm talking to you. That's factual. I'm talking about personal convictions about right and wrong. All those are subjected to the individual. If we're talking about right and wrong, all right?
So like I say, when you say God is evil, that's just your opinion, and you can be wrong about that.
It's my personal conviction. Think about it.
Right,
Hitler.
and
is there right to respond to that? Finish responding?
Yeah. Well, you just did with a yes or no, but yeah, you've already said that.
No, but I gave you a chance to respond.
Your conviction. You said it was your conviction, and now I'm asking you, since you say that opinions and convictions are two different things, I'm asking you if all convictions are factual. I
told you, all convictions are factual to the individual. Not to other individuals, but all personal convictions are factual to the individual because the individual is having those convictions, so it has to be factual to the individual.
Oh, okay. Was it objectively wrong for Hitler to kill the Jews in the Holocaust?
Absolutely not. If it was objectively wrong, he wouldn't have did it. He couldn't have done it because it would have been objectively wrong. It was subjective to him. Like to me, my personal conviction, Hitler was a maniac and should be destroyed. But to Hitler's own followers, they loved him.
Can I ask you this? Is it objectively wrong for God to drown elderly people and babies in a flood?
No. My personal conviction, what he did to the flood is insane. But to you, you love that God, so to you it was just and right. So I don't understand your morals.
Why is it that you use that as an argument? Because see, what it seems like is you state things as fact and use them in arguments in a debate, and then you say, well, these are merely my opinions, which they are, but.
I never said my opinions. I said my personal convictions. Two different things as far as what's felt. I would never die over an opinion, but I will die over personal conviction. Same for you. You would never die over an opinion of who's the best basketball team, but I bet you would die over a personal conviction if somebody tried to rape your wife and kids, right? So let's be honest about there's a difference there.
Is that a statement or a question or what?
Go ahead. No, continue.
Okay. You appealed to common sense earlier. Is everyone's common sense the same, or does it vary from person to person?
Come on, common sense says that everyone's common sense varies. If everybody had the same common sense, there wouldn't be wars, there wouldn't be divorces, there wouldn't be adultery, there wouldn't be murders, there wouldn't be anything. It would be just pure sameness. The reason why we have so much chaos is because we have differences of common sense. So that's apparent right there. That's reality. What's that?
Okay. Well, Mr. Strong, you've obviously used your reasoning, scientific reasoning, to come to the conclusion that God does not exist. Let me ask you this: how do you know your reasoning is valid, Mr. Strong?
Easy. I take my reasoning and I project it on reality, the outer world. Like if I can fly, I step on some 8 foot and jump off. In reality, says Brett Strong, you can't fly. So therefore, I know my premise is wrong. But if I say Brett Strong can run really fast, then I can run really fast. So therefore, my concept, my premise is just. So I base my reasoning off reality. Reality tells you what's real or not. I can reason anything.
Okay, so what it sounds like is you're using your reasoning to validate your reasoning against reality, right?
No, I'm not. I'm using reality to validate my reasoning. Reality is the one. Okay.
So reality is, well, that's a statement. Okay. Well, I'm okay. So you could be wrong about everything that you claim to know. Is that what you're saying?
No, impossible. Impossible. I know the last atheist said that. No, that's not in my worldview. In his worldview, yes. Not my worldview. It is impossible for me to be wrong about everything I know. I'm talking to you. I know that I'm talking to you. That's a fact. I'm here within myself, within my thoughts. That's a fact. I have trains of facts. So no, that I reject that entire premise.
Well, that's great. You and I agree. Okay.
Okay.
You said that all mathematicians and scientists and doctors say that God cannot be proven. Right? Did you say that?
That is a fact.
Is Ken Ham a scientist?
Yes.
A PhD scientist?
PhD scientist.
Well, he says that God can be proven. Is that true?
Ken Ham, when he said that, he's speaking not as a scientist. He's speaking as a Christian. As a scientist, he knows he cannot demonstrate. If I went to Ken Ham and said, hey, demonstrate the Christian God mathematically, experimentally, or empirically, Ken Ham can't do that. That's a fact. I'm not making an assertion here. Email him, anybody. He can't do it. So when he makes that statement, he's not speaking as a scientist. He's speaking as a Christian. Two different things.
Have I offered you several proofs for God that you've yet to touch or ground in your view of the world while presupposing them the whole time?
You have offered, just like the last atheist said in the debate, I'm going to say the same thing to you. You have offered zero proofs. Zero. All you've done is made wild leaps, wild claims, wild assertions that you can't back empirically, mathematically, or experimentally. You cannot demonstrate anything you said about the Christian God. So no, you have given me nothing but arguments. Nothing. That's it.
And that's time, Mr. Strong. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you very much for that portion, concluding off the first portion of our cross-examination debate. Coming up next will be a 10-minute rebuttal period, beginning with Mr. Thomas Cruz.
Okay. I'd like to start out by saying, what you're seeing here is an atheist who presupposes the laws of logic, says that God does evil things, but says evil is a convention or an opinion. And he also says that it's illogical to believe in God, but he says that logic itself varies from person to person. He isn't appealing to a standard, and this is typical of the atheistic worldview. That's why it is not intellectually tenable. It doesn't work. It falls flat every time. But that being said, I would like to say this. My opponent said that God and his attributes, the reasons they are the way that they are is because man designed him. He used the examples of hands and feet and a voice and all that kind of stuff. Well, there are several attributes that God, in fact, has that humans don't have. I'd like to give a couple of those. God is omniscient. Humans are not omniscient. God is omnipresent. Humans are not omnipresent. He is holy. Humans are not holy. Now, to use the reasoning that the reason God has certain divine attributes that are similar to man, because man, in fact, invented him, would be to say that all his attributes would be things that men had. Now, to me, logically, if God did create us, and as he said, he does give us certain attributes that are like him. For instance, we are formed in his image. And one example of that, of course, as I said in my opening statement, we are able to reason and use logic. We are able to think his thoughts after him. The hands and feet, that is something that we have. But it's only a small piece. It's only a small similarity to God to say that we formulated him because we had some similar attributes is a fallacious argument. He also said that God is hidden. Well, Mr. Strong, as you know, the early copies of Scripture, we actually have more ancient manuscripts than any other book on the planet. Also, there are more Bibles in print now than any other book on the planet in history. Now, to say that God is hidden and you are having a debate on his existence does not make much sense, because God reveals himself to us in Scripture. He reveals himself to us in creation. He reveals himself to us in your ability to have rational discussions. And above all, he's revealing himself to us in the debate we're having right now through myself and you, constantly referring back to his word. I believe in cross-examination. Mr. Strong was asking me about, if I believe the donkey could talk, if I believe that Moses could part the Red Sea and the water out of the rock, and all of these things. Well, you see, this really is a simple question, this is a simple question to answer. Of course, I believe these things because I affirm that there is a God. See, that's what it all comes back to, the existence of God. If God exists and if God is who he says he is, then these things are not impossible for him to do. After all, he created the universe out of nothing. You see, you are using a man-made philosophy, which is science, which is a a philosophy. I know it has some things behind it that are a method. I understand that, but it's funny to me because you say that I cannot appeal to philosophy to prove God when you are in fact appealing to science, which is a philosophical system. It is a naturalistic system. And once again, by appealing to science, you are making a category error. You are saying that God can be tested in a physical way. Now, Mr. Strong, there is one thing that all science they will say. They will say that you cannot use science to test anything that is immaterial or transcendent. And one of those things science can't test that you would continuously allude to is logic. You continuously talk about something that you have to presuppose without being proven. Once again, science itself has to presuppose these laws to validate any of the data that it collects. So anything that you use scientifically, what you're doing is you're doing the same thing I'm doing, the theist. You presuppose something immaterial, transcendent, and true. So once again, you see there is a flaw in your thinking. You're being very contradictory to everything that you affirm. I would also like to add, I can affirm talking donkeys and talking snakes, but one thing, and after I did that, you laughed and said it was a ridiculous thing. But I would like to say this. I don't think it's nearly as ridiculous as saying Hitler was right for killing millions of Jews. You know, when I asked you that question, do you think that Hitler was wrong for doing that? You gave a very firm, no, I do not. Yet, when you talked about God, you made it seem as if God was wrong for drowning people. You made it seem as if God was a moral monster. Now I don't know what you're appealing to here, because on the one hand, like you say, morals are subjective, and anyone can do whatever they want. But it seems like you're saying the only person who has to be good all the time is God. Now, I affirm that too, because he is good. So once again, we do agree on a point. Now, as far as, let me see, what's going on here? Oh, yeah. You said that you were sure that I was going to appeal to personal experience. Well, if you noted in my opening statement, I said that appealing to personal experience was an emotional claim, and it's not based in any truth. Now, I think you would agree with that. But then a little later on in the debate, you said that personal convictions were different from opinions, and they actually carried some truth value in them. So, Mr. Strong, in light of your statements, if I was to appeal to a personal experience, well, then I don't see how you cannot affirm it. Of course, this is just another example of you being contradictory. The worldview you're trying to promote, as I said in my opening statement, it falls apart. It is not intellectually tenable. It doesn't stack up to scrutiny. And the reason is because the only way to make sense of the world, the only way to make sense of rationality or logic or even this debate is by presupposing God. And I think that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz. For your first rebuttal portion, Mr. Strong, the rebuttal period is yours when you begin speaking, and 10 minutes will be the allotted time.
Okay, notice my opponent did a lot of rambling, a lot of twisting my words. So when you hear this podcast, play over my opening speech. I answered everything he said soundly. He keeps wanting to bring opinion. I never said opinion. I said a personal conviction. I don't even know my speech through what he said that I just said because I didn't say what he said. He's twisted my words. So everyone, please, replay back my opening speech. You'll see how many fallacies he's just said in the last 10 minutes. But notice this, people. Get a piece of paper out and draw a big fat zero. Because thus far my opponent has given zero empirical, experimental, or mathematical evidence for the Christian God. Zero. He's just done a lot of talking, a lot of twisting my words, a lot of hoopla, but zero. Here, he says God does exist. The onus is on him to prove God exists. Now, if he wanted to have a debate that believing in God is reasonable, that's different. No. He said God exists. He has not given any empirical, mathematical, or experimental proof. He has not demonstrated God has existed at all. That's a fact. So get a piece of paper, draw zero. My opponent has given you zero proof, and rightfully so, because a Christian God does not exist. Folks, understand this. Why would an all-powerful God of the universes need my lowly opponent to defend him? I mean, I as a man, would I send an ant to defend me? The ants? No. I'm a human being. I would go to the ant pile myself. I wouldn't need an ant to defend me to other ants. And then question the ant, like, well, how do you know? You prove it. And I never show. A mere man needs to defend an almighty God. Think about it, folks. A mere man needs to defend an almighty God? That's ridiculous to me. Now, he wants to talk about Hitler. I never said Hitler was right to kill the Jews. Twisted my words again. I said in Hitler's mind he was right. Hitler's followers, Hitler was right. To me, Hitler was a disgusting human being that deserved to be wiped off the face of the earth. Those are my personal convictions. So for my opponent to twist my words to say as if I said Hitler was right, he's a Christian. You see, he's supposed to represent Christianity, but he does his types of twisting. But this is typical of Christians. Look around you. You see Christian hypocrites everywhere. Twisting people's words, lying, taking people's money, doing the very same things they condemn others to do. That's what my opponent has done. He's taken my words, twisted it, to the point I don't even recognize it. Proof? I never said Hitler was right. I said in Hitler's mind he was right. Hitler's cronies, Hitler was right. But in my mind, Hitler is a disgusting human being. Which brings me to why many atheists would say God is a moral monster. Folks, read 1 Samuel 15:3. This is my opponent's God. He loves this God. He worships this God. But this God in 1 Samuel 15:3 told his army to go stab to death babies, infants, pregnant women, elderly, the old, the sick, the handicapped, the helpless. This is the Christian God my opponent loves, wants to be with one day. A God that said stab to death infants, babies, pregnant women, beautiful little kids, stab them to death, elderly, stab them to death. Folks, they didn't have guns back there and bombs. They had knives and swords. They just stabbed people to death, guts. What kind of person want to be with a God and pray to a God and hope to be with that God who tells human beings to go stab to death other human beings? Kill them, the babies, the infants, the pregnant women. the elderly, the helpless, stab them all to death, cut them up in pieces. This is the Christian God. This is the Bible, 1 Samuel 15:3. This is why I cannot be a Christian. But my opponent is the Christian God is real. Wow. Not only has he not demonstrated the reality of the Christian God, but in the fairy tale book of the Bible, the Christian God is a moral monster at times. Drowning people, chopping people up, and at the end he's supposed to burn people up. The Christian God is insane. He's bipolar because on one hand he could be loving, kind, and gentle. On the other hand, he will destroy your infants, your kids, your wife, without regard. Let me move on. Personal experience. Yeah, personal experience. To my opponent, the Christian God that tells people to butcher other people to death, yeah. To my opponent, that Christian God is real to him, in his mind and in his imagination. But he cannot demonstrate once again that Christian God even exists. All scientists in the world back me. Einstein backs me. Stephen Hawking backs me. Christian scientists, atheist scientists, agnostic scientists, all scientists in the world speaking as scientists back me. Christian God cannot be demonstrated. He wants to talk about concepts again. Yeah, concepts and material exist in the mind, not in the outer world. Any scientist would tell you this. In the outer world, it's all material. So every time my opponent says immaterial, he's speaking fantasy. He's literally making stuff up and presenting that as truth. That's what he's doing. He's immaterial God. Any scientist will say, hey, my opponent, there is no immaterial. We study this, the cosmos, the outer world, all our careers. Yale, Harvard, Oxford, all will say, Christian and non-Christian, all this material, there is no immaterial. So my opponent, every time he says immaterial, he's speaking fantasy. He is being delusional, which makes sense because the Christian God is fiction. So to believe in the Christian God is to be delusional in that aspect. We move on. He says, now this is one of the most fallacious arguments I've heard in my lifetime. Well, God is real because there's more manuscripts of the Bible than any book in the world. Anyone would tell him, numbers don't prove truth. It's like me saying, hey, the Harry Potter book sold 1 billion copies. Wow, it must be real because, hey, after all, it sold 1 million copies. 1 billion copies. And if you look into the history of it, people back then believed in witches could fly and all that. So my opponent can't say, well, the Harry Potter book is, everyone knows it's fiction. No, back where she did the historical work, people back then thought witches existed. He knows this, that people could cast spells. So the Harry Potter book is based on some type of real historical belief. So it would be like me holding up the Harry Potter book saying this book sold 1 billion copies, therefore Harry Potter book is real. That's what my opponent has said. The Bible is real because it sold more copies than anyone in the world, any book in the world. That's just utterly fallacious. Let me move on. I got another minute. Let me find another good one to end this up because my time is running out to about a minute and a half. He says, God created the world out of nothing. Well, then, let's all the scientists of the world pack up your bags and let's go home. Forget the Big Bang. Let's just go home and eat dinner and sing Kumbaya because my opponent says that everything came from the Christian God. See how ridiculous his statement is? He cannot prove the Christian God exists, but yet he created everything from nothing. Once again, if we were to take his statement as being real, that the Christian God created everything, then we would have to say to all scientists of the world, pack up, let's go home. It's over. Christian God created everything. So you're studying the cosmos, how the world began, it's all a waste of time. We've got the answer. My opponent has it right here. The Christian God did it. That sounds utterly ridiculous. Am I correct? Because it is utterly ridiculous. My opponent has given zero proof for the Christian God. In his mind, he believes he's given proof. That's a sign of a crazy man in that area. It's a sign of a crazy man. To think he's giving proof, but the reality says You have given nothing but your mere assertions, your mere opinions, your dogmas that you've been taught and brainwashed with. That's all you've done. That's my end of my 10-minute dialogue.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Strong, for that 10-minute rebuttal. We are coming up to almost the conclusion of our debate. We have two more portions. The next portion of our debate will be another cross-examination period of questions by the questioner and answers by the answerer. Mr. Strong, your questions will begin when you begin. 10 minutes will be allowed for this portion.
Okay, my opponent, you love to talk about logical absolutes, like the law of identity. A equals A. So let's say a rat is a rat. And how can you make that wild leap from A equals A, like a rat is a rat, and it can't be anything else than a rat? How do you make that leap to there's a Christian God?
Well, like I said, I believe in logical absolutes. I affirm transcendental truths that are not properties of the physical universe. Now, the only way to explain something that is not a property of the physical universe that is true itself is to say it stems from something outside of the physical universe. In your naturalistic worldview, you cannot account for these things. The argument is the impossibility of the contrary. Like I said, atheism leads to foolishness, a denial of knowledge, and of contradiction. And I think we've seen that this evening.
What contradictions have you seen this evening from me? That's a question.
Well, for one, you said that morality is subjective. It is from person to person, yet you call God a moral monster. Now, if you're willing to just say that that's your opinion and it's not necessarily true, then it's not a contradiction. Now, if you are to say it is a fact and you're appealing to some set of moral standards which you've yet to define, then it wouldn't be a contradiction.
Okay, then you do realize that then you just been caught, because I've said all along that it is my personal conviction that your God is a moral monster.
Is that
right?
a question or a statement?
That's a question. Like, I asked you a question. You do realize you've been caught lacking. You've been caught making a misstatement about me, which I've said this whole time. So I never said that it was that God himself thought he was wrong, whatever. I said that it was my personal conviction that God is a moral monster to tell human beings to go stab to death other babies and stuff. I've always said my personal conviction. Am I correct?
Okay, right.
So there's no contradiction. So I'm asking you, what contradiction is it if I said that it's my personal conviction that God is a moral monster for telling other human beings to go stab other humans to death? It's my personal conviction. How is that a contradiction? Tell me.
Well, there is a difference between opinion and fact. You have said that these things are facts. You see, if it's a fact, it is objectively true, and it comports with reality. It's not an opinion. Now, if it's a personal conviction, it means it's an opinion. You see, I have a lot of personal convictions that you don't hold to. And now I can make the assertion that since they're personal convictions... No, hang on. You're going...
Hang on, I got to cut you off because you're going too long. You didn't answer my question. If it's my personal conviction, right, that your guy's a moral monster for telling human beings to go stab to death other human beings, which he did according to the Bible, stab babies and pregnant women and everything. If I say it's my personal conviction that God telling other human beings to stab to other human beings is a moral monster, and that's my personal conviction about your Christian God, how is that a contradiction? Just keep it right there. You don't babble, right there. How is that a contradiction? Because you said it several times and you're wrong. So tell me, how is that a contradiction? I'm holding your feet to the fire.
Well, that's fine. That statement that it's your personal conviction that God's a moral monster is not a contradiction. But in light of your other...
Okay, but no, hang on, stop right there. But you do realize you said that several times through this debate that I had contradictions, which I've said repeatedly I have not. So you've misspoken several times on my behalf. I just proved it by showing that you just admitted the truth. The truth, like, okay, you're not speaking contradictions. So why are you saying I'm speaking contradictions when you just said, okay, you're right, you're not speaking contradictions?
The debate is recorded, and it's all there. So
exactly.
That's fine.
Let's move on.
Do you have another question? Okay.
Moderator, how much time do I have? I got lost in that.
You have 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
You keep talking about the impossibility of the contrary. What do you mean by that?
I mean that it is impossible for you to make sense of anything without first presupposing a God.
Can you clarify me? Can you make that even more of a concise? That's quite confusing, I'm sure, to a lot of people. Can you put that in plain English?
I think that's plain English.
Oh, put it again. Say it again.
It is impossible.
What is the impossibility to the contrary?
Well, you have not grounded any of your assertions in anything all night. So,
okay. Let me ask you a question.
Wait a minute. You want me to explain? I am debating with someone that's debating about their personal convictions at this point, as you put it. Now, I don't see how that is a debate. A debate is supposed to be about things that are verifiable and true, and you're arguing an opinion, it would seem. No,
my personal conviction is verified by me. Period. That's just the way life works. It's verified by me, my personal conviction.
So it's an opinion?
Yeah, it's my personal conviction. Now, you keep twisting my personal conviction. No, hang on. Why do you keep twisting my words of personal conviction to an opinion? I told you, I explained myself. An opinion is like saying, who's the best basketball team? What's the best ice cream? A personal conviction is something I'm willing to die over or be very passionate over to the point like, hey, I'll risk my life for this. So I explained to you, to me, those two things are totally different in nature as far as what's felt. An opinion, who's the best basketball team? Who cares? Personal conviction, me and you know we're both ready to die over certain personal convictions. Why do you keep twisting my words from personal conviction to opinion? Why don't you use what I use, personal conviction? I will accept that because that's what I'm saying.
Well,
why do you do that? As a Christian, you're supposed to be honest. All these things. Why do you do it?
Yeah. Well, anything, any view that you hold within your person, in any personal conviction that you have, in essence, is only held by you. That therefore it has no factual basis whatsoever. By definition, it is an opinion. That is the point I'm trying to make, and I don't see how you don't understand the...
I don't understand because I explain what it means to me. So you can't use another... If I, in a debate, if somebody explains this is what this means to me, then you have to debate me on what I say it is. You cannot debate me on saying, no, I don't accept what you say what it is, but actually this meaning over here works for me. That's what you're doing. Because if you explain something...
Mr. Strong, first of all, it's a statement, but let me explain this. If that's the case, then you couldn't debate me by saying God's a moral monster, because it is my personal conviction that he is not. You would have to debate me on the fact that he is all good, right?
Hey, I understand that. I said it from the very beginning. You said nothing new. My personal conviction, okay, let me ask you a question. To me, your Christian God telling other people to stab people is gross. But to you, your God telling people to stab other people is loving, kind, and beautiful. Am I right?
No, it's wrathful for the offenses that they have committed against him by rejecting him the exact same way that you're doing. Okay,
but is that wrath? I only got like 45 seconds. Is that wrath that you claim is still a loving God's action? Your God telling other humans to go stab to death, other human beings, stab to death, babies, infants, pregnant women, elderly. Even though it's wrath, it's still coming from a loving God that you love and worship.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, if you would
No,
like...
No, hang on. I only got 20 seconds. Okay, I got 20 seconds. Do you realize to me that is crazy, insane to say that a loving God would tell people to stab other people to death, and you find that, loving and kind? And all, that to me is obnoxious. Time is up.
Okay, great. All right.
I actually still had 30 more seconds left on my clock. I mean, did you, Thomas, did you want to answer that last question? Or Brett, did you want to ask that last question again? I mean, because you got 30 seconds. I mean, I'll allow for the last question.
I want to ask him, what is your ultimate authority? Is it yourself or is it the Bible?
Oh, it's absolutely the Word of God, the Bible, Scripture. Yes, sir.
So your ultimate authority is a book that says a guy goes stab other women and kids to death. That is your ultimate authority as truth.
Yes.
All right, that's 30 seconds. Thank you very much, Mr. Strong, for those very strong questions. Now it will be time to flip-flop in our final portion of the cross-examination period for the night. My clock is calibrated with 10 minutes, and Mr. Cruz, Thomas, whenever you're ready, your 10 minutes begins.
Okay. Mr. Strong, you just said in your rebuttal that Hitler was in fact wronged. Now, is that just your personal conviction that he was wrong, or is that a fact?
It is a fact to me.
Okay, that's a personal conviction. I'm asking you if it's objectively wrong.
Yeah, objective to me, not to Hitler.
No.
If it was objective to Hitler, then he wouldn't have done it. This is common sense you're missing here.
Okay, is everyone's common sense the exact same, or is it subjective?
I've answered this. When you look at the scope of human beings, people's common sense varies. Some will be the same in the area, and some will be different. Ask your wife. You guys agree on some things, you disagree, and you'll say it's all common sense. So reality shows you that common sense varies in married couples, in communities, everything. That's reality.
Well, Mr. Strong, you said that your common sense comports with reality, and reality is the ultimate authority of your common sense. So, to me, what you're doing is you're appealing to an objective standard to find some truth in your common sense. Now, if you say that, it would seem that your common sense is empirically verifiable and true all the time. Am I off there?
Say that again?
Well, you say that you measure your common sense against reality. And when you do that, you find out if something is true or not. It would seem that when you do that, and when other people do that as well, their common sense would always have to be true because it comports with reality. Now, the definition of truth is something that comports with reality. So there is truth value in common sense by your rationale. Is that true?
Absolutely. Oh, hang on. Go finish. Was that it?
Well, you just answered it, and I'm gonna follow up. If that is
no. I didn't explain it. I thought you were. I didn't want to cut you off.
Well, you answered enough, and I'll let you explain in a minute. But you said absolutely. If that's true, then how come, like you say, people's common sense varies?
Okay. Have you ever heard this? Everyone listening will know when I say this. Like, yeah, I've heard that. What's true for you is true for you, and what's true for me is true for me in a lot of areas. So a lot of areas, especially when it comes to right and wrong. When it comes to right and wrong, it's always what's true for you is true for you, and what's true for me is true for me. It's always like that in right and wrong. Now, if you want to talk about what can one do or demonstrate or show, then the reality, the outer world will show you that. If you say you can fly, prove it. Your premise, you can fly, let's prove it. Reality will show you if you can fly or not. But when it comes to right and wrong, no, it's always inside the human being. There's no right or wrong in the universe. Like atheists would tell you The universe doesn't care about me, doesn't care about you. That's why tornadoes wreak havoc on Christians and atheists alike. The outer world doesn't care. The right and wrong cares is inside human beings.
I want to ask you a few questions here. So, is it true that you use reality to come to the conclusion that God is not real?
Oh, absolutely, because scientists would tell you, all scientists, Einstein, Stephen Hawking, all the scientists, like you can't demonstrate God in the outer world. You can have faith in your mind. But in the outer world, you can't prove God exists. Can't be done. You should know this. So why do you ask this question? It's beyond me, because any scientist would tell you this. And they study this all their entire lives. Can't be done.
Well, I'm asking you this because, well, you said that everyone's common sense is different. But the funny thing you just said was what's true for me and what's true for you. So how is that appealing to an objective standard such as reality? And if that's the case, if I make the truth claim that God exists, how can you then refute that if you can't use reality to do it?
You use reality to prove entities like dark matter, stars, sun, wind, energy, electric, gravity. You use science to demonstrate are these things real or not. Your God is supposed to be some all-powerful God, some entity that steps into time, because if you read your Bible, he's walking in the garden. You can hear his feet. He's descending physically down to Mount Sinai. Science will tell you that there is no demonstration of God, period.
Okay. Does science substantiate the laws of logic or right and wrong, as you put it?
No, science has nothing to do with right or wrong or logic, because logic is inside the mind, the concept.
So what you're telling me is since science can't prove them, then automatically they don't exist. But you've constantly appealed to them the whole debate, and this is an example of another contradiction. Is that true?
What contradiction? You haven't proven one contradiction. I'm waiting for you to. You keep saying contradiction. Say it again. I'm going to disprove it. Say it.
Okay. How much time do I have, Courtney?
3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay. You say that you don't believe in anything that science cannot prove. I
didn't say that. No. Right there. I never said that. You played this whole list back. I never said I don't believe anything scientists can't prove, because that's a fallacious argument. See? You're saying these contradictions, and they don't exist.
Hold on. But you say the reason that you don't believe in God is because every scientist says you can't prove him. I mean, what?
Isn't your God in the outer world? Right. Is your God? If you're going to say, if you're going to say your God is in your mind,
I'm
fine,
asking you.
He's imaginary. But you're saying God is in the outer world. Am I correct?
I'm asking you. No, I actually said that God transcends space and time and is immaterial, exactly like the laws of logic and morality.
And all scientists, okay. Can I answer that?
But hey,
if you're going to compare your God to laws of logic and morality, as you just said, then he's not God, because laws of logic and morality aren't God. So if you want to use that same line of reasoning, then you're wrong. Your argument is fallacious. It's over. Done. He's not God. He's a moral logic. Done. Keep going.
Okay. Mr. Strong, you said that every scientist in the world would say that you can't prove God, and then you said that science cannot prove logic either. How come you affirm logic, but you don't affirm God? That's the line of reasoning I'm using. I'm adopting your view of the world to try and make sense.
No, you're not. If you want to say your God is logic, he's not God. I'll accept that. You want to think your God is on the same realm of logic? He's not God. He's logic.
But see,
Period.
that's not what I asked you. I said, you said you don't believe in God because scientists say they can't prove it, and you've said that several times. But science also can't prove the laws of logic. They presuppose them. Yet you affirm the laws of logic and don't affirm God. Can you explain to me why you do that?
Laws of logic. What do you mean? Like explain. You're confusing me because what you're doing is philosophy. William Lane Craig is the greatest philosopher in the world, right? Christian philosopher. He would tell you what you're doing is fallacious. You can't prove God exists philosophical wise. So what you're doing, why I'm confused, because what you're doing can't be proven philosophically. Any Christian philosopher would tell you this. It's fallacious once again.
Okay, Mr. Strong.
That's a fact. William Lane Craig, Alvin Plantinga, the two greatest philosophers in Christendom, would tell you philosophy cannot prove God exists. That's a fact, not an assertion. Look it up, my friend.
I'm not worried about William Lane Craig or Alvin Plantinga, but you also said that God is insane, and he's bipolar. Is that a fact or a personal conviction?
It is a fact to me. God is a bipolar. He tells 1 minute he's loving people, next minute he's telling those same people to go stab babies, infants, pregnant women, elderly, handicapped, stab them all to death, chop them up.
Okay. All right. Closing statement time.
All right. Yes, sir. We have, well, first and foremost, I have genuinely enjoyed the encounter tonight from a mediator perspective, but nonetheless, we have unfortunately come to our closing statements. I wish we could have everybody here for another 3-4 hours on the phone. I'm sure everybody would be willing, but we have to wrap this up, guys. So, let me get my time calibrated, and we will begin with you, Mr. Cruz, whenever you're ready for closing statements. 10 minutes will be the allotted time.
Okay. I would first like to thank Mr. Strong. I love his passion. I love it. I mean, I think he'd be a cool guy to hang with. Honestly, we're about the same age, probably into a lot of the same things. But I do have to say that you know the point of a debate is to take the arguments of your opponent and to refute them. I haven't seen that from anything that Mr. Strong has done that was not in one sense affirming what I was saying, and in the next sense saying that in fact what I was saying was true. I think that we've seen here this evening that like I said in my opening statement, atheism, it ultimately denies knowledge. Now, the definition of knowledge is this: it is something that you know for certain. It's a fact. Now, to say that something is true because I say it's true, that's to beg the question. It is to say that my personal convictions make it true for me. Now that does not make it a fact. I know Muslims who have a personal conviction that Allah is real. Now, that does not mean that that's true, and myself included. I have a personal conviction that the Christian God is a real God, but that does not make it true. You know what makes it true is the impossibility of the contrary. I see this a lot with atheists. They cannot make sense of their worldview. They can't ground it in anything, and ultimately what ends up happening is They have only themselves to appeal to. Now that is strictly opinion. It's not grounded in any sort of truth. I would like to spend the rest of my allotted time to proclaim the gospel. God is holy and perfect. He requires holiness and perfection from us. Holiness is the inability to sin. It means moral perfection, and it is something that God alone possesses. Holiness is an attribute of God's perfect nature. Therefore, since there is no one greater than God, and God is the greatest good, God is necessarily the standard of what is good. The law is a reflection of the character of God. The reason it is wrong to lie, cheat, steal, etc., is because God cannot do these things, because he is holy, incapable of lying, cheating, etc. Therefore, the law becomes the standard of righteousness. But we, me, Mr. Strong, and Courtney, and everyone else who ever lived except for Christ, is incapable of keeping this law because we are not holy. We are sinners. Therefore, there is no law that has no punishment. A law without punishment is a slogan. The punishment for breaking God's law is eternal damnation. The gospel is the good news that the judgment of God upon a person who has broken God's law can be removed in the person of Jesus. This is done because Jesus, who is God the Son in flesh, was able to perfectly live the law and offer a sacrifice to God the Father. His sacrifice is the death on the cross, which was payment for the penalty of breaking the law of God. He died there and 3 days later physically rose from the dead as proof that his words, deeds, and sacrifice were true. Therefore, if anyone wants to escape the righteous judgment of God, he must receive the sacrifice that Christ made on the cross. This is done by faith, by asking Jesus to forgive them of their sins. I had a great time tonight, and I would like to say that Mr. Strong and Courtney Thompson are having a debate next week on the issue of Jesus in the New Testament. They are not debating if Jesus was a historical person. They are debating if the historical person of Jesus, as described in the New Testament, the miracles and all, is in fact a reality. I'd like to thank Courtney for moderating. I'd like to thank Brett. I enjoyed it, man. I think you're awesome, and I'd love to talk to you again. And that'll conclude my closing statement.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz, for those wonderful closing statements. Mr. Strong, whenever you're ready, you can close us out for the night with your closing statements.
Okay, I would also like to thank my opponent, Thomas Cruz. He's a great guy. One day I'll come down and visit him. We'll have some beers, drink some wine, and laugh and joke about this debate. He's a great guy, so I appreciate you inviting me on your show. I want to say also I'm on a phone once again, so if I'm talking too loud, I can't help it. I can't hear myself that well on the phone. I can't hear my opponent that well on the phone. So I'm actually talking really loud because of the phone situation. If I was in the studio at headphones, it'd be a lot better. But anyways, I thank my opponent and I thank my moderator. Now, to get back to my final closing statement, I haven't. My opponent says I haven't refuted him, but I've shown time and time again that he has been refuted. Remember, folks, he's giving you zero evidence for God as far as empirical proof, zero. Mathematical proof, zero. Experimental proof, zero. He has not demonstrated God exists. This debate is not about philosophy. It's not about logical morals. Go to Yale, go to Harvard. They discuss logic and morals, and the subject of God is never brought up. They discuss transcendental truths. The subject of God is never brought up. He's making his leapfrog from a rat is a rat, because it is a rat and couldn't be anything else but a rat, and that proves my God exists. Folks, that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. But this is what he's doing. He's making a gigantic leap of a rat is a rat, because it is a rat and it couldn't be anything else than a rat. Therefore, my God exists. That's beyond fallacious, folks. He's, like I said, he's given zero evidence for the Christian God as far as empirical proof, mathematical proof, experimental proof. Remember, folks, all scientists, all Christian scientists back me. All Christian historians back me. All Christian mathematicians back me. All Christian medical doctors back me. All philosophers back me. You can't demonstrate the Christian God that exists at all. It cannot be done. It must be taken by faith. Just like Zeus, just like Brahma, just like the monkey god Thor, Hercules, the Mayan god Baal, name them, the immature chocolate chip god. Pick a god you want from history. Make up a god right now. They all must be consumed by faith. Why? Because they're all fiction. That's why faith is needed for the Christian God. Christian God is fiction. That's why the Bible has a man named Moses split the sea in half. Water come from a rock. Snake and donkeys talking. This is like Shrek, the cartoon, talking animals. This is what my opponent is upholding as his ultimate truth. A Shrek book. Animals talking. People flying in the air. Look at Elijah. Elijah is taken up into a whirlwind, into the cosmos. How can a tornado take a man into the cosmos? He doesn't even have a spaceship. He goes into the cosmos. Read it, folks. But my opponent is uplifting this as his ultimate authority, a Shrek book. We got millions of these books called fictional books. And some of these fictional books back in the day, people believed in it as being real. But my opponent has not grown out of believing fairy tales. He's gone, unfortunately, from Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, and the Christian God. He graduated from the Santa Claus. He graduated from the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. He graduated that to the Christian God. All fiction, folks. But I understand life is tough. So I can understand why my opponent would like to believe in fairy tales. Life is tough. And so believing in fairy tales will help you get through life. I've seen it on kids. They're crying, they're feeling sad, and they'll say, and you say, hey, Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is going to be here tomorrow. Tomorrow is Christmas Day, and I've seen kids crying and jump up for joy and leap and go, woo! That's what my opponent, this fictional God, does the same thing to him when he's feeling down and out and hurt and crying and weak. They say, God is real. God is going to take you to the cosmos. Jesus is going to come back on a flying white horse and take you to heaven in the cosmos forever, and all your friends are going to be there. I get it, folks. That's uplifting. That's like, woo! I can get through this. But unfortunately, since we speak in reality, the Christian God in that story is just like Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy. It's all fiction. It's all fiction. With that said, it's hard for me to, as an adult male, understand how can my opponent, adult male, worship a God that he knows in 1 Samuel 15:3, look it up. My opponent worships a God that tells other people to go stab to death other people. He worships and uplifts a God that he knows tells people, hey, go stab to death that baby. Go stab to death that pregnant woman. Go stab to death that elderly man. Go stab to death that handicapped person. Go stab to death that person who is on the deathbed. Just stab them all to death. Stab them. Cut them to pieces. This is his God he worships. That to me, wow. I don't understand it. I get the fairy tale part is, God loves me, he's going to take me to heaven. I get that. I'm down for that. But I'm not down for people worshiping a God that tells other people to stab each other to death. That is why Christians, one of the reasons why Christians enslaved black Africans. They used the Bible. It's like, hey, the Bible, Old Testament, the Bible says you can have slaves, so we're going to enslave these blacks and bring them to America, and we're going to beat them to death. We're going to whip them to death. We're going to rape them, torture them, maim them. We're going to do the most violent thing to these people ever done to humanity, and we're going to do it in the name of God and Jesus. Many of the slaveholders were priests, pastors, clergymen, lay people. This is a fact. This is not an assertion. So taking this Christian thing too far ends up people in this area. Now, moderator, how much time do I have left?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Once again, my opponent loves to bring up logic and morals. Once again, a rat is a rat. Does not constitute a Christian God. That's a fantastical leap. I don't know if I'm repeating myself in my closing statement, so let me move on. My opponent believes that a woman turned into a pillar of salt. Is that rational, folks? A woman turned into a pillar of salt, table salt? Is that rational? Is my opponent rational in that area? I think not. It's like worshiping Charles Manson as God. It's like worshiping Jeff Bundy as God. My opponent hasn't proved being rational. He hasn't proved God. So let me finish. Remember this, folks. When you hear my opponent's name, draw a big zero. When you think about who won this debate, draw a big zero. My opponent says God does exist. The onus is on him, and he has not demonstrated God to exist at all. Zero. That is a fact. That's not an assertion. Me just showing up, I won the debate because I know he can't prove God exists. And all scientists, and all historians, and mathematicians, and philosophers, and historians would tell them this. This is an easy debate, folks, because no matter what I say, I know this one thing he can never defeat. He can't prove God exists, the Christian God. That's why there's millions of gods. Because you can't prove God exists because they don't. It's all fiction. It's all fiction. And I'm Brett Strong. Visit me on my YouTube page, Brett Strong. My opponent, I love you. You're a great guy, great father, great husband. I appreciate it. We're going to talk again, maybe be on your podcast when you have it. I'm the moderator. I'll see you next week. And to all the folks out there, thanks for listening. And love, peace, joy from Brett Strong to you and your families, opponent, and moderator. Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, this is Thomas Cruz. If you enjoyed that debate, please subscribe to our channel, Biblically Apologetic. If you would like to download any of the debates that you've heard, please visit our website at biblicallyapologetic.wordpress.com. If you have any comments or would like to debate a specific issue, please contact us at biblicallyapologetic@gmail.com.